Good morning. We're now on the second video segment of Lesson 8. Lesson 8 is all about Jewish moral education, about two different models. The first model we're looking at is Maimonides, and that's the topic of this video segment. Let's begin with Maimonides' biography. Here we'll just a couple of items. Maimonides has a fascinating biography, and we could have devoted a whole class, if not a whole semester, to Maimonides' biography. Just a little about him for those who don't have previous knowledge. Maimonides was born in 1135 in Cordova, Spain. He and his family were forced to leave Spain after the invasion of Arab tribes. He traveled through North Africa and Israel. He arrives in Egypt in 1168. He settles with his family in Cairo, where he remains till the end of his life. After arriving in Egypt, he takes on the occupation of physician. He rises in the ranks very quickly until he becomes the physician of Al-Fadil. Al-Fadil was the vizier, the counselor to the ruler in Egypt. And then Maimonides becomes the chief physician to the Sultan himself. He also is involved in Jewish affairs. He's appointed the Nagid, the head of the Jewish community, the Egyptian Jewish community. Queries come from all over the world. Maimonides is recognized as one of the leading Jewish scholars of the 12th century. He dies in 1204. Let's talk a little about Maimonides' literary activity. He writes early on in 1168 the commentary on the Mishnah. This is an important work for Maimonides, for an understanding of Maimonides on character education. Within the commentary on the Mishnah, there's a monograph called Shmona Prakim, 8 chapters, which is an introduction to the tractate Avot. And there is Maimonides' most extensive discussion of character education. We won't be looking at that. We'll be looking actually at a chapter from his Mishneh Torah, which was finished. The composition was finished in 1180. This is Maimonides' Code of Jewish Law. Nevertheless, despite its legal character, he integrates within it considerable philosophic material. And there's a discussion, a whole section on Deot, on character development, and we'll look at one chapter from that section. And then just to round it off, the third work that I'm mentioning is Moreh Nevuchim, Guide of the Perplexed, perhaps the most important Jewish philosophic text in the Jewish tradition. There are those who claim that after Maimonides wrote this work, all subsequent Jewish philosophic activity can be seen as footnotes to this work. Now, let's get to the text, our text. Obviously, the author is Maimonides. The work is Mishneh Torah, the Code of Maimonides. Maimonides breaks the Mishneh Torah into 14 sections. The first section is Sefer HaMadah, Book of Science. It's interesting that Maimonides chose to begin a legal work with a section on science. And then the subsection in Sefer HaMadah is Hilchot Deot, the law of character traits. Maimonides bases this much on philosophic sources. And we're going to look at chapter 1 here. Okay, let's proceed to chapter 1. Now, in this chapter, we see Maimonides' famous principle of the golden mean. Let's look at one quote here. The right way, and here he's talking about moral education and moral development. The right way is the middle course in each set of human traits, namely the disposition which is equally distant from the two extremes. Hence, the ancient sages ordained that every person should always evaluate his dispositions and adjust them in the middle course. He should be neither hot-tempered, nor should he be like a corpse that has no feelings. So what do we see from this quote? Firstly, that what Maimonides is interested in is character education. That is, that we should educate towards virtues, that each person if he is moral, has a set of character traits or virtues, and these traits are defined by their median character, by their moderate nature, that the median between extreme character traits. And here he gives the example of anger, that on the one hand, we don't want a person who's hot-tempered, who's always getting angered, who's easily triggered. But on the other hand, we don't want a person who's completely apathetic, that nothing impacts upon him. And therefore, through proper character education, we develop a person with these median virtues. And that's in terms of the end, the ideal of moral education. What are the means? Here Maimonides addresses this issue. How can one train, Yargil, himself to follow these temperaments to the extent that they become a permanent fixture, yikava, of his personality? In other words, Maimonides asks, how do we do moral education? What's the means, the method of moral education? He should perform, repeat, and perform a third time the acts which conform to the standards of the middle road temperaments. And then he continues, he should do this constantly until these acts are easy for him and do not present any difficulty. Then these temperaments will become a fixed part of his personality. In other words, the method for Maimonides is habituation. You get permanent character traits, fixed virtues, as a result of routine moral behavior. A person, for Maimonides, moral education is all about moral behavior. A person does the right thing, and he does the right thing often. For a student, within an moral educational context, we have to have him do moral behavior in a repetitive fashion. Now, just it's important to note, where did Maimonides get this? Here, the source is very clear. We'll turn to Aristotle, his famous work, Nicomachean Ethics. He argues, builders by building and harp players by playing the harp, so also then we become just by doing just actions, temperate by doing temperate actions, brave by doing brave actions. So Aristotle, as Maimonides, argues that moral education is about moral behavior, about routined, habituated moral behavior. And that's the essence of moral education, about character education. And this is our first model in terms of moral education. In the next video, we'll see a contrasting model for moral behavior, which is more rooted in Dewey and less in Aristotle. Thank you very much.